On this week's episode of the A to B podcast, I'm joined by Deirdre Corcoran, founder and creative director at Chapter, a multidisciplined creative studio based in Cork City. Having worked in multiple creative roles over the space of 15 years, Deirdre decided to finally go out on her own in 2015 and set up Chapter. Since then, Deirdre and the team at Chapter have been behind some of the coolest brands and business revamps in Ireland. Hi Deirdre, how's it going?
Hi Jack, how are you doing? Are you well?
I'm very good. Well, let's pretend we haven't spoken for the last half an hour before actually recording this, and we actually have something to talk about.
Exactly.
Yeah, tell me, how are you and the gang at Chapter doing?
We're good. We're really staying positive, I suppose, as best we can. We've stayed working from home the whole time, so I think that's taking its toll. If I'm honest, I think it's hard on people to be working from home every week for 7 months or however long it's been. But we've an amazing team. They're really supportive and really into the work we're doing, and we've been really lucky to be working on some very exciting projects. So that's definitely helped. Yeah. So we're doing good, I suppose, as best we can in a situation like this.
That's great to hear. I can just imagine how difficult it must be in a kind of creative role to have to do all of this through like a bloody laptop screen or whatever. Because at the moment, I've I suppose I have 4 or 5 assignments in college at the moment. And fortunately now, myself and the lads were smart. We decided to do the one group, same people for all of the projects, just to kind of keep the work load down in terms of reaching out to different people. And we're working with some real businesses and things, and we're coming up with really exciting ideas. But it's just so difficult, even like the creativity side, even theory, when we're trying to put a report together, the small things like that, trying to do it over Zoom, and we're all there taking out notes and we're all writing stuff down. There's just something different when you're in a room together with a group of people, and I don't know, it's not right trying to do working together, but all from home.
It definitely presents challenges. I think in the beginning, initially, we were quite, we were all quite upbeat and trying to stay positive, and that we had a lot of kind of things in place because we'd often be working remote anyway. If I was out meeting clients, or if we were on a photo shoot or a video, shoot or something, and the team were back in the studio, we already had ways of working when we weren't together. But that said, there's just certain projects for brainstorming and stuff that it's just so much better, like naming projects. When you're naming, it's so much easier to do that together, I suppose. But we've definitely found our ways around it. That's all you can do really, is adapt. And but it's definitely challenging. Yeah, I don't know. I suppose it depends. I've got so comfortable on Zoom now. I think half the time we forget we're even on it. It's like we've been working with an amazing lady at the moment, and she's based in the north. And like we wouldn't have ended up working with her if this hadn't happened, And now I actually forgot we haven't met in person. I feel like I know her so well that we've actually, not well. We did meet once years and years ago through a mutual friend, but that we haven't actually met this time around. So it's just funny. You can get very comfortable with it. Maybe that's a bad thing, but we've definitely found our feet, I suppose, with it.
Yeah, no, I think this new virtual world has brought along a lot of new opportunities. I know if it wasn't for working from home and having to go onto Zoom and the likes, the A to B podcast wouldn't be a thing. It's something I'd wanted to do for a while, and all I didn't even know what Zoom was. All I could think of was, how am I going to afford a podcast studio? Where am I going to rent one? How am I going to convince people to come into Cork or whatever? And as soon as we were all forced to go home and work from home, and I suppose do team meetings and things, it became a bit more accessible.
Definitely.
So,
and it's easier to ask people for a half an hour of their time or an hour of their time, and they can kind of slot it in, and it's not all the travel around it. It's definitely, people are more free with their time that way, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's brought along, I suppose it's a silver lining in all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. which we have to
So
focus on. Yeah.
it's a nice way to look at it. It's actually ironic because what I use to record audio for the podcast is it's a website called Zencaster. And fortunately enough, it's free for the duration of the pandemic. Now, I'm not too sure if the founders of Zencaster were aware of how long this pandemic was going to go on
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
But I'm it's a horrible thing to say, but as long as the numbers are kind of there, I'm able to use this for free. So I'm monitoring that, but it's definitely budget friendly at the moment.
That's good to hear. You're making the most of it anyway.
Trying to. um, but look, I suppose I'm going to take you to the start of things, which is what I usually do with guests. And I suppose creativity often starts in childhood. Certainly did for me. And what
Yeah.
I'm interested in knowing is, when did you, I suppose, discover that you had a creative spark, or that you were interested in design, and were you creative as a child? What was that like for you?
Um, it's very interesting. I suppose I don't come from an overly creative family. They're actually quite the opposite, and highly intellectual and amazing people, but not totally creative, if that makes sense. So I often think that sometimes my skills kind of went unrecognized, if that makes sense. And so even to me, like I just thought a certain way, I didn't realize that that was a different way of thinking, or I could visualize, like I can absolutely um if I start to think about something, I can see it completely done in my head. So if I'm designing, I sit down and I create what's in my head. I don't start with a blank page, if that makes sense. Like, so I didn't
Hmm.
know that that was a skill that other people don't have. You know what I mean? I just didn't know it was. So it's something I'm very passionate about, is school and how school encourages creativity, how it bears witness to it, I suppose, and also how it's guiding people. It's something I'm going to be getting involved actually with an amazing lady, Kim Mackenzie Doyle, who's really pushing it forward. Actually, just how creativity is very much the future for a lot of businesses, and how if people are talented, that they get encouraged and that they see that there is career opportunities in it. Because I would say that's definitely something that I was lacking in my education. I think in my leaving cert, we didn't have an art teacher for 3 months.
Oh.
So, it was a great school and very education focused, but art wasn't seen as a career path, I suppose. That's the thing. So it's something I care a lot about for my son, and something that excites me right now about the pandemic and moving things forward. Like, the schools have all introduced this thing called Seesaw for doing homework, and it's just, I find that so exciting because um my son, there's parts of his homework that he can choose to do by video. He can choose to do, he can write it, he can do it by video, or he can kind of draw a picture and take a photograph of it. So he can answer a problem in any of those mediums. And I think that's really democratizing education, because before now it really just suits somebody who has more of a kind of a kind of a I suppose a different type of intelligence, if that makes sense, and they can just kind of learn something off and repeat it. Whereas I
Mm.
think creatives approach something different. It's much more intuitive. They have to really understand it. And then once they understand it, they can just add layers and layers of depth to it. And I think that I just get excited when I see when Hugh can just answer his homework in 2 minutes via video. Like, that might take him an hour to write or half an hour to write, because it just doesn't suit his nature, if you know what I mean? Even though he's very good at writing too, but he's just really good at expressing himself via video. And I think that that's amazing that that's now in schools, and I don't think it would have happened as quick and across the board in so many schools if it wasn't for the pandemic. So it's definitely a little bit of another silver lining.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely. And even I suppose like that must do leaps and bounds for a young person's confidence, because
Hmm.
even when I was in school, everything we did, we just, you'd write, you write the answer, you'd give it up, and that'd be it.
Yeah.
I didn't, I didn't properly start giving presentations until I came to college, and it was the exact same for a lot of people in first year. So we were given presentations in first year. We were all nervous. I
Yeah.
still get nervous now, so I think it's
I,
definitely a step in the right direction for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it is. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, but creativity. I know there was one moment, all right, where I suppose maybe where my family realized I was creative, and that was where I went. I have told this before, but I went to St. Finbarr's Cathedral with my school, which is a Protestant cathedral, and I was raised Catholic, and my mum had always passed that school or passed that church
Hmm.
cathedral and being afraid to go in, and they were told that if the angel tooted its horn that it was the end of the world, and so she used to run past it on her way to school, and
Of course.
then I came home like super excited about it and all the gargoyles and all the architecture, and we went the following week, I think, as a family to see it, and I suppose that was maybe their first inkling, but like I was totally alive after being in there. I just thought it was amazing, so um yeah,
Now,
maybe that.
what age were you when you had gone there?
Maybe 10 or 11. Yeah, I think around that age. Yeah.
Uh, and I suppose then throughout secondary school, like you were saying, there was a brief moment in fifth or sixth year where you didn't have an art teacher for 3 months. But how come architecture? Like, did architecture ever interest you, or was it always kind of more in a design sense? Or
It was for me really. I kind of fell into design because all from 14 to 18 it was sport was everything for me. So I was a
Hmm.
rower and I rowed for Ireland and stuff, and I trained seven
Wow.
days a week. Yeah, three times a day. We'd train in the summer, like, and I'd cycle 45 minutes there and 45 minutes home, and I wouldn't even consider that part of the training. So we were kind
Jesus.
of we were doing, and that was it for me. All I wanted to do was sport. I was absolutely obsessed with rowing and loved it. But I got injured in my leaving cert year. And I suppose I had never really loved school, I'll be honest. I loved the people and I loved hanging out in school and I loved all that side of it. But uh, I didn't consider myself good at school. My sister was amazing. She got 10 A's and 8 A's, and just kind of, I suppose I was following in her footsteps. So I didn't really see myself as, I don't know, kind of, I was unsure of where I fell in school, if that makes sense. And then when I got injured and I couldn't do rowing any longer, I was devastated, to be honest with you, heartbroken. Um, but I kind of decided I wasn't going to go to college, which I was in a very academic school, so that was kind of really frowned upon. But my parents were very like fine with that, whatever I wanted. And then I worked that summer in a pharmacy, and I was tempted to become a pharmaceutical technician. But that summer, I kind of suppose spent an awful lot of time with adults, and I suppose I was already an adult, but like people much older than me, and I kind of missed hanging out with my friends and didn't really tell anybody that I was thinking maybe I would go to college. And then when I got my CEO points, is it CEO? What is it?
Yeah,
CAO
yeah.
points, is it?
See, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I can't even remember. It's so long ago. But when I got that, I had got this course, Design for Print in CIT. And I was kind of like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. And I suppose I'm just so lucky because I went in and from day one, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Loved every project. I suppose it was the first time that it was challenging me in the way that I needed to be challenged, the right type of projects that I could really get excited about. So yeah, I that was it for me then really once I started there. I think that's something I say to a lot of interns who we'd have, or younger people anyway, who are into design. If you are creative and you're not letting it out, I don't think you can really be happy. Like, I think it's
Mm.
fundamental to who you are, and you need to have some way of letting that out. So once I was doing that in college, it was a really great time for me. I found something I loved, I suppose, which I feel very lucky about. And I suppose I'm 20 years out of college now, I suppose, and I've only grown to love design and strategy really more and more and more. So I'm very lucky that way.
That's great. No, I think it's interesting because I spoke to Will Sliney, the Marvel artist, recently,
Yeah.
um, and he explained how he'd met his guidance counselor in school, and he thought that engineering was for him. He enjoyed designing Formula One cars, um, but the guidance counselor had said to him, you know, from this little quiz we've done here, it's obvious that you need to do something more creative, and that if you don't, you'll essentially go mad. Um, and I suppose other than you taking that summer to work in the pharmacy, Did your school, I suppose, like you said, it was quite academic. Did you have any support from your school in terms of them kind of, giving you direction and helping you out where to go afterwards? Or
Not really. I think that like I actually what I feel is God, he was really lucky. I think he just met the right career guidance. I hope that school has moved on a lot, but I wouldn't think so. Not really. Not in the way that I now know you can profile somebody and you can understand somebody and you can guide them. I think that there's definite tools out there that are very simple that schools could be doing. So I hope they are doing them these days. But no, I didn't really. No, I didn't really have that much help around that. Like I'm sure, like my parents tried. I think that's the great thing now. There's just so much awareness of that. There's just these multiple types of jobs you can have, and I do still try to get that message out there that there's a great future in design roles. I would have had a neighbor here. I've known her since she's 9, and she used to babysit for me here, and then she did her kind of transition year work experience with me. And then I spoke to her parents a lot because she wanted to go into interior architecture. And I just heard their concerns firsthand, like, is it really a career with jobs, and that kind of way. And she's gone
mm,
on now and she's doing her final year there, and she did her work experience in college with us then as well. But I
that's
suppose
great.
I do see like the parents, if you're coming from a world where you have no exposure to creative careers, I suppose you can be concerned for kids. But I suppose that's the message that needs to get out there, because I think one of the books I have here to read that I haven't got yet to read is of the DEO, so kind of design really leading businesses and leading design thinking leading businesses. So I think there's huge opportunities for people to go into design now. But no, I wouldn't have really even known what a graphic designer was. I don't think. I don't know. Like, it's hard to remember. I
Yeah.
sound so old now, but yeah, I don't think I really understood what I was going into even.
It's interesting because no, correct me if I'm wrong. Design for print, that's no longer offered in CIT. Now, I would assume that it's probably it's I suppose
It's the
developed into maybe multimedia. Oh, yeah,
it's
go on.
it's not multimedia. It's a graphic. Well, it's whatever the course for
Creative
graphic.
design, or
Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah, it's like at the time it was designed for print. We actually did study printing. I do sound really old. I'm only 41.
I know
Um,
because
but like,
like
no,
the printing
no,
press in Germany.
yeah, no, well, we did actually print, and I loved that. Like, I absolutely loved printing. Anyway, so I suppose it was a great course. Yeah, I think, and it's an even better course now. I mean, I was in with them last year. They're doing great things with the students. So yeah, it's a great course.
We've two of them. Well, one graduated, Leon. He's just graduated. He did creative digital media, and he's done some pieces for me. I don't know. Most recently, I had it was like Times Square and all of the A to B branding across Times Square and a couple of bus stops too.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
But I just reached out to Leon. I was like, "Look, do you reckon you have time to throw this together for me?" And he did, absolutely not a bother. And I'm talking to a friend now at the moment about starting another podcast, kind of a more of a social one. And there's a girl, Maya, who does amazing. I don't know what kind of art you'd call it. Um, I can't even describe it, but it's like you get the idea that it's someone's face, but it's very, I suppose, abstract might be the word for it.
Hmm.
Um, but like definitely in terms of like there being a route for creatives in business. I mean, like especially in business, like when it comes to branding or marketing, the idea, like I suppose in communications, like you have to gain attention, and there has to be people have to be able to understand it clearly, but they also have to, I suppose, yeah, you have to gain attention and you have to attract people. And doing a degree in marketing or business or commerce, you don't really have the tools, whereas people are drawn to people and creativity. So definitely, like having a creative in your firm or being able to reach out to like a firm itself that's creative like yours, and be like, look, we want to do this, but we just don't know how to communicate our business or our product or anything like that.
I think that it's the creatives tend to be very empathic. So, really, there's been a huge shift to realizing it's about what the consumer wants, not what you want to say, that kind of way. So I suppose that's our skill, that we can understand it from the consumer point of view, and we can help to turn that business strategy into a brand strategy, and that's the consumer facing side of it. So it's being able to focus on them really and understanding their needs. That's a big part of it, and that empathy is huge. That's really needed.
Mm. Yeah, so obviously it's a lot more than just drawing pictures,
Oh,
which
yeah.
the reason I say that is because some parents might be hesitant to have their children go into a creative course, but I think more awareness is possibly needed there. And again, I think tying it back to Seesaw with Hugh, that is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it definitely is. I see it like I have three stepdaughters as well who are really creative, and you just see them come alive when they get to do the projects that they love, or where they're more physical, or they can make something, or like I was never actually good at drawing. I'm really bad at drawing, and I have to draw a lot for work. It's terrible, and people screen grabs my drawings, and I'm like, oh my God, they're so bad. But like, for me, it's much bigger than that. It's a vision, I suppose. Ultimately, isn't that what
Yeah,
it is? It's that creatives have that vision, and they kind of understand the what I suppose trends as well. So it's a mix. It's like it's a hugely strategic job. Actually, being a designer is a very strategic job, and maybe that's what gets missed. And it's just a different way of problem solving as well. It's just a different way of approaching a problem. So these are kind of, I see these skills in the kids in my life, my nieces and nephews as well. So I just get really excited about that. All these people who can inherit chapter and take it on.
for,
It won't be for
brilliant,
nothing. But they're all very
brilliant.
creative, and I just find it so enjoyable to be around them, because they're just it's a great way to think about things. Yeah, I'm
That's
rambling a bit, I
wonderful.
think.
Um, no, no, it's lovely to hear. I suppose just to move on. You graduated in the year. I don't know if we'll
What
just say.
year I did.
Uh, yeah, look,
I don't
we'll
actually
leave
know,
that out
George.
now.
I don't mind you saying it. I
No,
just
no,
can't remember.
fair enough. Well, look, you graduated in the year 2000, Deirdre, and then I suppose what happened when you graduated? What was employment like? Finding a job, coming straight out of college. Did you have placement? Did you work? Did you have any experience during your time in college?
No, there was no workplace. Oh, there was actually. I went. Yeah, see, I'm forgetting now. I went to Dublin actually, and did do a placement there, and I loved that actually. And then yeah, it's a really interesting question, because it was a very different time actually. If you look back like 20 years, and my parents, I suppose that was the concern. Like, where was I going to get a job? I was obviously loving college, but where was I going to get a job? And a job came up in the Irish Examiner, and I applied for it and got it. And basically, what people used to say to me then was, "Bring your coffin," which was hilarious. I was like, what do you mean? And but basically nobody ever leaves at the time left the Irish Examiner. I suppose they were one of the main employers in Cork, and it was seen as a really good job to have gotten, and a very secure job. And that basically that would be my career. I would stay there, and it's not that I didn't want that either. I was only 20. I didn't really have many thoughts about it. I was just excited to have a job. I'll never forget my first day working there, and sitting back and going, "Oh my God, somebody is going to pay me to do this." Because I absolutely loved it, and I just couldn't believe someone was going to pay me to do it. And I know we've just hired a junior designer, Anya, and her energy, I just love her energy. She's so excited about everything, and I know she's having that exact same thing. Oh my God, someone's actually going to pay me to do this. Like, it's brilliant. Um, so that was it, and I had an amazing experience in the Irish Examiner. Brilliant grounding to get. Again, I think for any designer, and I do always say this, it's great to get a grounding in print. It's a complex science, printing, and understanding how color interacts with paper, and and being involved in the actual printing side of it, and color proofing and color testing and all these things. I loved all of that. I found that really exciting. And I suppose it was I worked in advertising, so I was selling, I suppose, through design. And I found that really exciting. And it was very fast paced. So there was, a publication in the afternoon, the Echo, and there was one that had to be ready that night to go in the morning. And I worked the evening shift, it was a great job. And I stayed there for 4 years. Um, and I worked, I suppose, in with the kind of a team of people that I learned a lot from. Uh, and yeah, it was just a great time, really. Still have friends from there that I would still be in contact with. And it was a really good job. But I got contacted by somebody within the Irish Independent to go and set up a department for them in Cork. And I was only 24, I think. And I went and did that. And that was huge. And like just setting everything up from the technology side of point of view, servers and computers and all the software and all the printers and everything. But
That's
that was
amazing.
very, yeah, it was cool, and I did really love it. And I to manage that was my first management role, and I suppose I was only 24, so that was kind of a baptism of fire because management can be challenging but interesting as well. And but I just had no, I was the only designer, so there was no backup. So there was no like, how do you take a holiday? How can you be sick? How can you be anything? So it just that didn't really work
Mm.
out, and life kind of was taking me to Dublin at that point anyway. And that's then when I went to Dublin and I worked in this place called Double O Design, and they're still there, an amazing company as well. And that was a very interesting job because they were doing a lot of work for American school books. So American school books are translated from English to Spanish because a lot of the population, obviously, Spanish would be their first language. So they have the same school book in in English and Spanish, but Spanish runs 30% longer than English.
Oh,
So yeah, so if you
cool.
wanted to say to all the students, yeah, that turn to page 72, it needed to be the same page. So they had a team of editors who were obviously fluent Spanish speakers who would edit and try and get the copy to stay on the same page count, basically, as the English book. And then we would have to make design alterations to fit that copy and make it work, basically. So you worked really closely with them, but then also like there'd be 1,000 page books, and you would be using, like, I think it was ISDN dial up to get the files to America for a print slot,
Oh,
like in these like
almighty.
high end printers that were like printing between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. And you had to make it, and lots of pressure that way, and management and file management. And I suppose I kind of, my skills would come into play there, all right, because I'd be very like, um, I kind of have always been good at project management and keeping things tight and organized. And so that was really exciting. And I liked that a lot, actually. And I loved the
Do,
team there.
do,
Yeah, sorry, I'm
do
telling you
you do
everything
you
now.
no, no, do you work well under pressure? Do you feel?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, definitely. I'm probably better under pressure, to be honest. Like, I think
Yeah.
sometimes I just, when I have to, I think sometimes a bit of pressure is never a bad thing, especially with design. You have to get decisive. Like, you can basically do anything in design. Like, that's the reality. If you have enough time, you can do anything. And the more time you have, the more confusing it can be. Like, what is the right solution? So I find when you are under pressure, you have to get really crystal clear on, what am I trying to achieve here? What needs to be done? Who needs it? Who's the end user? What do they need from it? And like, you kind of work back from there. And yeah, I think some rules and time pressure, not lots of time pressure, but yeah, it doesn't phase me. I suppose all of the jobs, even that I'm explaining to date, all had time pressure
Hmm.
attached to them. So that has really kind of stayed with me, and it's just a good learning and grounding to get, and to not panic. I don't ever, I can get, I've had anxiety in my life, and I definitely have had panic attacks to do with other things, but with work, I never panic ever. No, it's luckily there's always an answer. It is only design. Like they say, we're not brain surgeons. So yeah, no, I'm lucky that way. That doesn't phase me.
That's great.
Yeah.
And how long did you spend in Dublin?
In Dublin, then, so yeah, I was there for probably only for about 18 months to 2 years, maybe. But I was very
Okay.
homesick. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
very, very Cork orientated. I love Cork, and yeah, I was
Where in
very
Cork are you from?
I'm from Mayfield originally, in the city, and I live in Middleton now, and I have done for since I moved back from Dublin. But I just, yeah, I love Cork. And I do love, I absolutely love Dublin as well. I have a lot of family there. And
Mm.
unfortunately, with the pandemic, we're not up there, but usually I'd be in Dublin a lot. Like, I miss that. So it's a great place to visit, but I suppose, yeah, I just wanted to be home. I did work in RTE before I came home, so I had applied for a
Yeah,
job
you were
in
a supplement designer.
yeah, so the RT got, it was a great time. That was pre-recession, so 2006, and huge budgets. And I was very lucky. I was paired with an editor. So like a lot of my background before branding, and it wasn't an agency life. It was all in publishing, I suppose. But
Mm.
I went to RTE and I worked on supplements for the RTE Guide. So they have a team of designers who work in weekly cycles for the RT guide, but then we were doing kind of these supplementary magazine that would come every 3 weeks. So I was paired with an editor, and like from the Suzanne Byrne, and from the minute she walked in the door, we just clicked. It was amazing. And
Mm.
we would get 3 weeks to, and we would have like, it might be a celebratory magazine about something that had happened in Ireland, celebrate 100 years of something, and you'd have 3 weeks to come up with your concepts, and we would do everything together. Then she'd write it, I'd design it, and we'd kind of worked with our editor to get it over the line. But it was, or it could be on fashion, or it could be on sport. So I loved that job because I've just very varied interests anyway, and I found that that was really exciting. And there was big budgets for photo shoots, and it was a great job. And again, I suppose it required a lot of planning and strategy as well. So I was excited by that part of it. And it was a big job to leave behind and come back to Cork. But I suppose I wanted to come home.
I find it interesting because, like, I mean, RTE would be it's quite a big company,
Hmm.
and from my understanding, from I suppose different interviews, and I listen to a lot of podcasts and watch a lot of things on YouTube. It's kind of almost the bigger the corporation, creativity seems to be dimmed out a bit. Um, did you ever feel like that? I suppose even with the Examiner, the Independent, and with RTE, then did you feel like that they were always in support of that creativity, or did you feel that there was too many department heads to get onto, and that sometimes that would kind of restrict creativity? Or how did how was your experience with that kind of aspect?
Yeah, I suppose that you always have to fight for creativity. And that's probably not a bad grounding to get. Like, I suppose they were all kind of more junior roles as well. And so it was good to learn to have to stand up. And actually, the more, I don't think any designer should ever be worried about being challenged about their design, because the more that you get challenged on it, you have to ask yourself, like, if you're going to fight for something, you're only going to fight for it if you really believe in it. So they were
Mm.
probably, I definitely would have fought for a creative solution or space to come up with the creative solution at times. But like, they're definitely working in, like, I suppose a semi-state body, and the examiner would have had the feeling of a state body at times. So there was definitely similar characters. Like, there was characters I'd worked with in the examiner that when I was in RT, I was like, oh my God, they're very similar to that person. So
Mm.
I definitely, if you spend a long time there and haven't worked anywhere else, I wonder, have you, just to have a kind of a, I suppose, a view of, it's great to have moved companies and try different things, and test out, do I like this, don't I like this, this way of working, or I prefer that way approach to work, or it was kind of, I was always glad that I had moved and experienced different companies. But yeah, no, I mean, you'll always have to fight for creativity. I think that's changing. I do think that's changing. I think that social has and that kind of constant connection to a consumer has kind of shown brands that they're not as in control as they think they are, and that they are at the mercy of the consumer. So basically, that makes a big role for creativity then. So we have to fight a little bit less, I suppose. But um,
No,
yeah,
I agree with you there, because without coming across as unsupportive to print media, given I suppose my position and like my age, I could not tell you the last time I bought a magazine or a newspaper.
yeah.
I consume all of my creative media on my phone. and if it's not on my phone, it's on my laptop. But any artists I follow, it's all on Instagram. Um, anything like that, even with music, like.
Yeah, no, look, I probably, my behavior is the same. I probably consume most things through my phone, but I do still have a draw for print. But I think it's really
Mm,
important. I think the Irish Examiner have done this really well, actually, where it's like they used to report the news, now they analyze the news, and I think we really need that analysis of the news. And that what's the terrifying thing about social is if, it's a rabbit hole, and if you click on one article, they're going to keep sending you different articles in the same vein. And where are we getting that kind of like balance in reporting? So I do
hmm
think, I hope there's a return to print, for everybody's sake. I hope we all, and that analysis of the news, and that kind of more honest, trustworthy reporting. It's a dangerous place when we're only getting our news in one kind of vacuum. I think, that I think we all have a responsibility in that. As I say, I'm not the best myself because I don't really have time to read the newspaper. But when you say that, and I look at the screen time I spend on my phone, that's not a true statement. Like, I could make the time to read a newspaper. So it's just something I'm pondering at the moment. I think we do need to return to something like that. Yeah, a big challenge for everybody.
Definitely, I think there's a sentimental value to it though, because even though I say I can't remember the last time I bought a magazine. I can say that I bought one about a year ago, and it's the one magazine that I bought like 4 or 5 issues of it over the last few years, and it's a PlayStation magazine. I think it's PlayStation UK, and like all of their articles are available for free on their website. But there's the
Yeah,
odd time when I go into Eason's for like a notes copy, or I go in to get like a book for my sister, and I'll walk past and I'll just see this glorious cover, just amazing artwork, or something will stand out. And whereas when I was younger, my mother would always bring me home a gaming magazine for the weekend, and whether or not, I didn't even, if I had no interest in a game, I would read every single page in that magazine, just because I was like, well, nothing else to do for the weekend now. I better start reading this. And in saying that, like I have a few art books at home, which I'm surprised by because I'm not the most artistic person, but I do have a respect for it, admiration, if you will. But it's all video game art, like
yeah,
different, I suppose, what's the word? Not cosplay, but um, oh, art before it actually turns into something. It's a concept art. I have like a load of concept art at home.
yeah. Well, I don't know. My house is falling down with books, and I was never a reader as a kid. It just, and our house was filled with books, but none of the books appealed to me, if that makes sense. So
Mm.
I never thought I was into books, and it was more as I got older and could buy the books. Not that they wouldn't have bought me the books, I just didn't know that there were topics I was actually genuinely interested in to have the books on them. So like my house is just filled with books on, I don't know, I'm looking around. Well, art, interiors, graphics, obviously, but more like architecture, but personal development, philosophy, I've loads and loads of books about that. And I think the thing about books and magazines is it's a great thing for trends. It's a great thing. So for anybody in design or in marketing, it like trends are so important. And I kind of bought, like, let's say, Living Etc., which, because obviously we do interiors as well, and I was obsessed with Living Etc. And there is about, I'd say, maybe there could be 200 copies inside the chapter. But like, it's a really great thing, because if you flick back, you can very easily spot the trends. And social, there's no
hmm
kind of recording of that, and it's a really important thing because right now trends are moving very, very fast. So like years ago, if somebody was opening a bar or restaurant or starting a clothing company, whatever, they would have traveled to see what was available in maybe New York, Berlin, London. They'd kind of go to places like that. And now people just go to Pinterest, and that's why there's an awful lot of the same. And trends are happening at
hmm
such a fast pace. Uh, so it's really important. I'm trying to find ways of, not getting our inspiration from the same place everybody else is getting our inspiration. So I'm really glad that I have. 200 copies of Living, etc., to go back and find inspiration there. So I do think they have their place and they're really important. It's one of the sad things about lockdown that I went looking for magazines and I think loads of them aren't being printed right now, which is really sad. I would be sad if magazines, but again, I think it's the articles, the editorial, the analysis of ideas and thinking. That's what you get in a magazine. I know that's available online too, but it can be much shorter and snappier. And I don't know, there's some really, I love, I still have, I think it has its place. And also actually traditional print marketing, I know from a lot of clients, it still really has its place. It's delivering a lot of sales for people. And while social is amazing, again, it has the same risk for businesses that they only, that they have this audience and they only focus on that audience and they're selling to them and they're targeting this other, and there's this whole other audience offline who don't engage with you there that you can still engage with and should engage with. So it's really important to keep the mix, I think, and keep the balance.
Mm-hmm. So just a brief lesson in marketing for me, and for, I suppose, any other students or even business owners listening now. If a company or a business, like, this is just me being curious. If I was, if I had a business and we did everything just online, we had social media, we had good Instagram, we were happy with that. How could you convert then to print media? Like me, when I think of that now, I just think of like some lad on Grand Parade handing out leaflets to people. Now, that's obviously because, well, number one, we haven't done any, I suppose, modules in college with print media, and I've no experience in that. So, like, how can you do print media today when so much of the focus is digital?
I mean, see, there's different points and different times in people's lives. So let's say if it just really depends on the business. But for example, if it was a hotel or weddings now is a funny one to talk about at this point because it's it's very hard for anybody to have a business in the wedding industry right now. But usually
Mm.
it's back to human behavior. So if somebody is getting married or something like that, like all the trends would say they'll buy all the magazines to do at weddings. They'll spend a fortune on things like that. So if you're in that business, yes, those people's attention is online, but you have to look at where those people, where their attention is and how they and their behavior. And so you could really get their attention in something like a wedding magazine. And also those wedding magazines get held onto and passed around because groups of friends tend to all get married around the same time. So it has a kind of a longevity. So you just have to adjust the message then that it that it's not focused on the short term, or maybe sometimes like in hotels they have a high turnover of staff, so you don't name somebody because that magazine might actually genuinely live for a year. So you wouldn't want to kind of call out somebody's name. So there's different approaches, but I don't know if that answers your question, but we don't do a huge amount of it, but it's still relevant. I know that people have been doing flyer drops, clients of ours, and have had a lot of success with it. So, it's still relevant, definitely.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't actually cop that because, I actually don't know if you know this. I assume you would, but I did my placement with Wedding Dates,
Oh yeah,
and
with Kira, yeah, yeah, yeah. She's
yeah,
fab.
yeah, and it's a discussion. She is absolutely. It's a discussion that we had where, when a bride is, I suppose, about to get married and going through the process of planning and things. This is the wedding planner Jack Foley coming out now. A lot of people wouldn't haven't heard this side of me, but there's a certain aspect of role play leading up to the wedding where they will buy the magazine, and yes, you could go onto Pinterest, and yeah, you could go online and you could have a look at these articles online, but there's nothing better than going in to Eason's, picking up, Weddings Weekly, whatever it is, Brides Monthly, and being like, I'm getting married. I'm going to spend €8 on this magazine because I'm getting married. And walk out of the shop in magazine in the hand, happy out, go home, sit down, read it, and be like, yeah, getting married in 4 or 5 months, whatever it is. I'm reading this magazine. It's great. Um,
Yeah. See, I think it like niche, if you've got a niche market and you know where their attention is, like it's just the same approach. So but you're just taking it into that kind of print world, really. And yeah, absolutely, people will part with money very easily when it comes to weddings. It's a crazy time in someone's life. So €8 is like a small price. But if somebody will
Yeah.
enjoy it, and they can share those ideas and sit down with people and enjoy it. So I definitely think it still has its place, definitely.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I know closer to the launch of the new consoles now this Christmas, I'll more than likely pick up a magazine just so I can read the
Yeah,
review in actual print. Just again, I think it's a role play aspect to kind of getting excited for something. I think it's the exact same thing. Like my parents would rarely buy the paper now, but when the Rose of Tralee is coming up in August, they'll always buy the Kerry's Eye so
oh
they
yeah,
can see the all the roses. And again, I like even it goes again for the late Night show. They know what time it's going to be on. They know it's going to be on RTE1. There's no question. But they'll still buy the RTE guide. And in fact, not even just that. Every Christmas they buy the RTE guide so they can see what films are on. And
yeah,
any other
that's
day,
the tradition.
any other week, yeah. So it's definitely tradition based as well. Um,
Yeah.
which is nice. Which is nice to see with kind of repetition, and you can rely on it.
Yeah. No, like that's it. And like I saw John O'Gorman, the Cork artist, he's done the cover for the Holly Bow. And like that again, like that's 127 years old or something, I think I saw on his post.
Mm,
Like, I mean, I'm going to buy that. Whether I'll actually have time to read it is different. Like, so I think, again, it's back to understanding human behavior. It's like people will feel like it's not Christmas till you have the RT guide, I think I bought the RT guide last year and I don't even have Sky, so it's like kind of,
there you
there's
go.
kind of, yeah, so it's just kind of understanding. It all comes back to kind of understanding what motivates people and so it's not that they actually want to read that, it's that it signifies Christmas, you know.
Yeah. I suppose. Do you still find design exciting when so much of it is what, like you said, what the customer wants and what the people will be attracted by, and yeah, what the general public really want. Do
Yeah.
you find it still applicable to be able to apply your own twist to it and satisfy yourself?
Well, like really important, that's never the goal for me. I genuinely for so
Should
yes.
it be for any graphic designer?
No, and it really is. Sometimes people there is a problem where people want to design what they want to design, and you're never going to deliver for you'll go fine job to job, but you'll never deliver for the client. Not never, that's a strong word, but you may not deliver for the client. I mean, we just approach things very differently, and I get so much enjoyment out of that. Like for me, a brand is only successful if it's actually delivering sales. Like I don't really want design awards going somebody saying that's the most beautiful typographic logo and it's balanced perfectly and it's stunning, and it was completely wrong for the market and didn't get sales. Like I've no interest in that. Our clients come to us. It's a huge responsibility. Somebody's in business. They've worked so hard to get where they are, and we've got to translate that vision into something that a consumer connects with. And it's really exciting. Maybe that makes me really sad, but I find it like
Absolutely not.
thrilling.
No.
I find it thrilling. What
Hmm.
we have as for chapter is we want to be doing brave work. So we don't want to do the tick the box work or just like something that like that's lovely and off you go. Like we're looking for the challenging work. We're looking for the people who want to disrupt or like we're really fortunate to be working with Board Bia and on a few packaging projects, and we're approaching them like you know just they don't have to necessarily feel like packaging, if that makes sense. So trying to be brave with the work and just making sure we find the clients who want to do that. That's the bit that excites me. No, I would say I'm more excited now by the projects we've on than I've ever been. So no, it's even
Brilliant.
with the challenges that are there in the market right now, and it's a very volatile market, and trying to predict or guide people it can be challenging because nobody knows what's coming. So then that's all about honesty with clients and trying to come up with agile strategies that are responsive really to one way or the other, or just giving them room within a brand to just, I suppose that's, and to kind of change very quickly if they need to, and that's all very exciting to me. So yeah, definitely more excited than ever. And I think it's brilliant that we're finally that consumers have the power now. I think that to me is how it should be. Yeah.
That's great. And I suppose to try and transition here, do you think consumers had the power in 2007 when you left RTE Guide and joined? Now, I have the name here in front of me. I'm not
Huguenot.
going to try and pronounce it.
Huguenot.
So once more,
Huguenot.
Huguenot.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
they're gone now, but they were a design agency. They were the largest in the country at a point. And
Wow.
I worked there for 5 years. And I worked massively on the Super Value account. So that was
Hmm.
I spent like 5 years on pretty much on the Super Value account. So do I think that the consumer was in control? I think like in a way the consumer's always been in control, but it's just more uh like there's a lot of like for example, what do I mean about that? I suppose the way that like there's kind of who would have thought that the kind of craft beer movement, in 2007, would we have thought there'd be like more beers than you could ever remember? No, like there was key players then, and that was it. And
Hmm.
nobody thought there'd be kind of people disrupting that market, I suppose, at that point. Um, but yeah, I suppose the consumer has always kind of been in control, and we were definitely. I mean, that was a big shift in my career, moving from publishing and to very varied work to then coming home and working in an agency and really looking at like I did a lot of press advertising for Super Value and kind of big campaigns that would be like rolling across 46 weeks of advertising and headlines that rolled from week 1 right through to week 46, so a continuity of message and hierarchy of message. And I found all of that and like kind of the planning and structure all around that part of the job was really exciting. And then I worked on I suppose kind of national campaigns for Super Value, who are really ethical in many ways as a company. And I think a lot of people enjoy the Super Value experience because it is a very human experience when you shop in there. So I suppose it was kind of working with them to translate that message. And I would have yeah, I did a lot of work there, and it was very much, I suppose that was kind of where I really started on that kind of brand, really going deep on a brand and thorough and like knowing like your customer profiles, and really drilling into that kind of thinking. That was probably the first time I really did that in any depth, and I loved it. Yeah, and that's obviously a big part of what we do now all the time. So that was um that was an exciting time. Yep.
I suppose it's interesting because I could be wrong here, but 2007 was kind of when the recession in Ireland was at its peak.
Yeah, I bought a house in December 2006 and the crash was in February
Oh,
2007. So,
bloody hell!
yeah, no, it was. And like we had pay cuts it was a challenging, it was a different time. I remember like getting pay cuts and kind of going, okay, like 12.5% pay cuts, and then thinking like everybody was like working it out
Jeez.
that yeah, but if you cut out your coffee, you kind of weren't that bad off.
Mhm.
Like, and to kind of make you realize how much you were spending buying a coffee every day. And I remember seeing kind of school students able to get a coffee and being a bit like, huh, I'm working really hard to not be able to buy a coffee when I want to buy a coffee. And stuff like that. Yeah, so it was a different time, and it was definitely like value. Everything was value. So dialing up the value message for customers, and
Mm.
like Lidl and Aldi were coming into the market, and Tesco was
Yeah.
huge. So it was like I learned a lot in that, in like how you, as an established brand, deal with the challenger brands. And there was a lot of strategy and messaging around that. And I obviously I know, I just actually really loved that. Like other designers maybe wouldn't, but I really loved the thinking, and the thinking first and then the visual after. And that's still the way that chapter is now. It's all about the kind of the idea first and cracking that, and then we'll always find the visual language for that then. But it's the power of a good idea,
Yeah.
really.
It's interesting because I suppose from 2000 up until 2007, when you would have joined
Huguenot.
Huguenot,
Yeah, Huguenot. Yeah.
yeah, I got
Yeah.
it. Don't worry, it was just a connection issue. But I suppose like Huguenot, did I get that right there? Yeah, it's my last time
Yeah,
saying it.
yeah.
I'm not going to say it anymore. But make a fool of myself here. That would have been your first time working in, I suppose, a very commercial role. You know, when you were working with a brand like Super Value, and like you said there, it was very very value driven. Um, would you have worked with, I suppose, any marketing or any, you know, people who were in the business side of things, and they would have kind of explained to you that, you know, we're going to go for a value and a quality thing and a value and community and support local kind of thing? Or had you that, I suppose, strategy worked out yourself, how to kind of attract the consumer to Super Value when the likes of Aldi and Lidl and Tesco were popping up? Did you know what to say, or I suppose did you take from other people, learn from other people during your time there, and then bring that to future roles?
Oh yeah, like I always say to people, like, look, I think, well, it's a funny time for designers to be coming out of college now. So right now, I think you take whatever work you can get, and if that's freelance work, take the freelance work, and just keep working. That would be my main thing. Make sure you keep using your skills. But ideally, for anybody, I think you should work in a team. I mean, you'll always learn from people, and no, I worked with very talented people there. So and if you get a room of talented people together, you bounce ideas. It's really exciting. So, like the way that would work, yeah, we always worked with marketing teams within Super Value. They're very talented people, and we would work with them. And I'm a huge fan of collaboration. Like it has to be collaboration. So we they would have like a business objective, and they would create a brief from that, and then we would bring I suppose the creative strategy and the business strategy. We would take that business strategy and create the brand strategy, I suppose, and then put a visual, you know, to that message. But all of that required teams of people, lots of thinking. Um, there, something was multiple routes. We
Mhm.
don't, which is quite different, I think. We don't do routes. We just do one creative solution. That we present, sorry, one creative solution. That doesn't mean we don't we go down multiple paths and we look at different directions, but for us we present one route because I think it was at my time there, and it's not a disrespect to them, but I was involved in lots of presentations to lots of clients, and I felt like we overwhelmed clients or confused them or gave them too many answers that they didn't know what was the right answer. So we take a very
Mm.
confident stance, and we if we really we don't present until we have something we truly and utterly to our core believe in. And then when you believe that, you can present that very confidently, and you don't need any backup routes in your pocket to, I don't know, to kind of show that you've proved that you've done the work. I think there's a lot of trust with us and our clients that we are doing the work and that we will present to them when we have the right solution. So that was something I would have learned then. I found that frustrating when we knew what the right solution was, to be kind of having to come up with multiple solutions just because you're supposed to present two or you're supposed to present three. It wasn't something I kind of agreed with, I suppose. That's the only thing I'd say about that. But we're kind of, we can be considered unique in that, I think. For a lot, I think it's more standard to do it the other way. But I just strongly believe that, sometimes when you're working, there's one obvious, not obvious answer, but it really does deliver for the client, and it delivers from a consumer point of view, and then you should be able to say that to the client, that I really believe this is the right direction.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And after 5 years with said company name,
Yeah.
um, you joined. I suppose I assume creative director was Deirdre Rose Design.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. So that was my married name. So I no longer go by that name because my marriage ended. But I had Hugh when I was well, sorry, I became pregnant with Hugh when I was working in Huguenot, and it'd been a long road to have him. It wasn't easy. 2.5 years trying to have him, and I suppose when I was pregnant and uh, then here with him as a tiny baby, I just couldn't imagine leaving him, and that's no judgment because lots of people choose to do the opposite, and it's whatever's right for you, and only you know what's right for you. I feel very strongly about that. That women need to say that and hear that. But for me, I needed a way to be able to have the time with him, and I kind of just couldn't see how I'd spend like the Huguenot job was an amazing job, but it was 60 hours a week, and I
oh,
just didn't see how I was going to be able to make that work. So then I went out on my own and ended up working about 100 hours a week. No, not joking. So I basically, a lot of graphic designers do nixers or foxers, if that's the right word. So they have their job, but then they do a few jobs for friends here and there. And I'd actually never done that. So I had no client base, I had no foundation to pull from. But I just had this kind of burning drive to be at home with my son. So I just kind of, I suppose, handed in my notice, and it was the company at the time. It's now gone. They were letting people go, and they had told me my job was there, but I just couldn't see how I was going to make it work, and so it was a big risk to take. And I just went out on my own, and I suppose it was like found one small client, and then the next, and then you do good job for them, and they tell somebody else, and they come back for repeat work, and it just started growing and snowballing. And I got the contract with Fota Island Resort, the hotel, and that was a huge
Wow.
contract. And then that kept me very busy.
What
And
year was that,
then
Deirdre, if you don't mind me
that
asking?
would have been to, well, Hugh is 9 next. What is it, 2021? 9 years. I suppose that was 2012, 2012 maybe, yeah.
Okay.
And so this was under Deirdre Rose Design. And then what happened then? Yeah, the Super Value, when I had been working with Super Value, they obviously within my contract, and it's only fair when you leave a design business, you're kind of excluded from working with any of their clients for 6 months. But after the 6 months, they contacted me, and I started doing some Super Value work here as well. And that's just kind of funny because
Wow.
I'm back now working in the house and working out of a bedroom. But I was working kind of on these big campaigns, and I did a kind of big magazine for them. I'm kind of doing them all out of my bedroom, and I felt like a bit of a fraud. And it's just kind of funny looking back, and they never cared that I was working out of a bedroom, but it kind of challenged me, I think, a
Hey,
bit at the time.
you worked from home before it was popular.
Oh, I was doing it well, yeah. I think it's always been a thing. I did 4 years working from home, so it was a bit of a challenge when I found myself back here during the pandemic, because while I loved it and it allowed me the time with Hugh, I suppose in the middle of it, my marriage ended, and I was a single mom, and I was working here like all day long, and then I had a little baby at night, and I couldn't leave at night, so it's kind of like ended up like a bit like a prisoner just here in this house, a bit like now. But I'm free to leave now if I need to go to the shop or whatever. But like, it's hard when you have a small baby and you can't just go to the shop if you need milk or whatever. So it was kind of an intense time, a really exciting time, because I suppose Chapter was born out of that then, and it's grown a lot, and lots of different people have become involved and worked with it throughout the years. And it grew far beyond what I ever imagined it would grow to. And it was just my head down working. I literally, if I had like 4 hours of childcare, because I was trying to not work full time, but I had like two big clients. So I would drop Hugh to childcare, and I would come back, sprint the stairs, and then sit at my computer, and then sprint back down the stairs, collect him, play with them, bath him, get him to sleep, and then work till like 1 a.m. And then maybe get up at like sometimes 5 a.m. to do an hour's work before he'd wake at 6 a.m. So I did that for 4 years. That's the truth. Like, businesses aren't born out of nothing. They're born out of like lots of really hard work. So I did my 4 years where I just literally lived and breathed it, barely saw my friends, was basically a mom and working, and I loved it. I'm really lucky that I was in a position that I could do it. And I had the energy for it. But and like great things came from it. We just got better and better, really. We got to work with more exciting clients, and then I suppose I employed somebody, and that was like massive. And then I had company every day, and that was great. And then I had more company, and then there was like four of us working out of a bedroom here, not a very big one. And then it was time to move out, because we were just like, there was no pair downstairs minding Hugh, and then there was four of us working in a little office. And I'm incredibly patient until the day that I'm not. So basically, I just one day was like, I can't do this anymore. So then we took this tiny little studio in Middleton next to the farm gate, and that was really exciting. And I suppose that was the dawn of kind of Instagram stories, so that worked out.
Mm.
So I kind of, I suppose, because I was here and quite isolated and doing all this kind of great work and going to meetings and I would get dressed up, and I suppose I like fashion and I like clothes, and Snapchat was a bit of a thing. So I was putting up my outfits kind of on Snapchat just purely out of the fact that I had no kind of interaction with adults in many ways, and I would
Great.
put up my outfit, and that kind of got a little bit of a following. And then just at the right time, when I mean, it's not like we've a huge following, but we've an engaged following, I suppose. But when we moved into Middleton, that was at the kind of dawn of Instagram stories, and like people loved following along, I think, and seeing, you know, seeing this beautiful studio come to life. And then we started sharing the work we were doing, and that was really great. It attracted really talented people to come and work with us, and attracted more clients. So social has been incredibly good to us. And I suppose that kind of grew till about 2018, and then
Mm,
we'd run out of space completely there. So then we moved from there to the South Mall, and we took 2 floors on the South Mall, which is, I suppose, the main business district really at the time, anyway. And we've done up a gorgeous studio there that we're now no longer in. Spent a crazy amount of money on it, and we still have to pay for that. And that's the kind of bit of a juggle at the moment, how we're going to. A lot of people are walking away from their premises, you know, because they can work from home, and it's
mm,
such an uncertain time. But, you know, we've got a great landlord, and I'm trying my best to work that out because, you know, I've put my heart and soul into that place. And I do believe, you know, you do better work all together in a very creative space. You know, you can do better
hmm
work in a very creative space. So that's our kind of challenge right now. And yeah, so now our team has gone from kind of grew, and when we were much bigger, and then I suppose at the start of the pandemic, we did lose about 75% of work overnight, with hotels and theaters and a lot of restaurant clients. And so a lot of work was kind of gone overnight, and so the team had to slim down a bit, which was really hard and challenging. I have to say, it's not something. Uh, I love business, but not that side of it. And then, like, we've just worked really hard. The team that were left are just like super, really behind. I don't know. I think just really behind chapter. Really believe in, I suppose, what we're doing. I suppose I didn't really say that, but like, you know, I really uh, you know, I suppose when I had the opportunity to create chapter, I wanted to create somewhere the kind of place I want to work, the kind of place I didn't always have the it didn't always work, you know. So I was trying to kind of I suppose I looked back, and I'd had my eyes open for my whole career, and I'd been watching, and I'd seen how uh what kind of adds to creativity and what takes from it. So like you just can't create in a negative space. And so we kind of have a very open door policy. You can say anything. I want to hear it. If there's any, you know, it's very rare, but if there was anything, let's talk it out and figure it out. And just like, you know, we all have to work really well together, and we're now a small team working very tightly together. So yeah, very lucky that they're so invested in it, I suppose, and doing such great work. And then luckily we've picked up, you know, quite a lot of really interesting branding and strategy work right now, which is great because that's our. I suppose, you know, I absolutely love design, but I love strategy even more. You know, so it's with the deeper we can go on a project, the more exciting it is for me. So we're working with
mm.
some very exciting people right now. So yeah, that's kind of chapter then. It's a mad experience, but a very fortunate one.
Big or small, it sounds like you have an amazing work culture. You know, it seems very well innovative for a start, but also open and welcoming and progressive, which is really nice to hear.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of businesses are moving that way, which is great. But it's just, I suppose, if anything, I hope we would just be considered human. You know, like like that's what I would want. And I suppose, you know, we can't get it right all the time, but we try very hard at least to get it right, if that makes sense. And
Mhm.
you know, I really do value the people on the team, and I value their talents. And I think that that matters, you know, and people, yeah, people respond to that. And I suppose, you know, we're all aligned. I suppose in the end, this is how consumers align with brands, but it's the same with employees aligning with brands and team members. Like they you know, we care about the same things. We're trying to do the same type of work. We care about doing, thorough work and really delivering for a client, and nobody's trying to be kind of like, I don't know, kind of design off in their own direction. It's really as a team, and a really important thing. And I think it's more important now than ever to like the people you work with, because working over Zoom and stuff like that, that's definitely a challenge. And hanging out with the people on Zoom all day, so Joanna and Trez are just like, I don't know, I'm really fortunate to work with them. They're amazing. And also the people that we kind of have a network of freelancers that we work very closely with as well, and who are hugely talented and who do just feel like an extension of the team, really. So I kind of learned that a long time ago. You can only do, like, the quality of work is only as good as the suppliers and kind of people you work with. So whether that's the like really talented printers or the digital team that we work with, it's really important that everybody kind of cares about the same standards and kind of has the same approach to work. And then luckily, I'm a big believer in the universe, but that tends to attract like-minded clients, if that makes sense. So we tend to end up working with
Mhm.
really nice people as well. So we're lucky.
That helps too.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Well, and people who are open to being challenged as well, because when you have your own business, you can see things like a certain way, and it's really important to, like, you know, um I suppose, be able to see it from somebody else's point of view, and especially see it from the consumer point of view, and being able to hear that and take the kind of, I suppose, to be open to being challenged about certain ways of thinking. And so it's really important to have those good relationships.
Deirdre, I suppose I'm going to move on to the rapid questions round
Oh
when
yeah,
you're
okay.
ready.
Yeah,
Yeah, these are
yeah,
going to be
fire
short.
away. Okay, great.
Okay, cool, cool. Uh, would you rather work from home or in the office?
Ah, definitely the office, but there's definite benefits to working from home. I love that I can be here to collect Hugh from school and do his homework with him, and then come back, get him settled. Like, he goes out on his bike with his friends, and I can come up and do another meeting or two. So I definitely think my future life, when we can go back to work, will balance both. There'll be days where I'll be in the office, and there'll definitely be days where I'm here. So definitely both. I think that'll be for a lot of people. I think there's a place for both now.
Did you have any other ideas for the name other than chapter?
No, funny story. So we do a lot of naming. It's something I think we're very good at and something we really enjoy. And we spend like weeks naming other people's businesses. But I literally, as I said, was trading under a married name, and my marriage ended, and my accountant rang and said, you need to change that name, and you need to do it in 30 minutes. For some reason, can't remember the reason why. And I was like, what the hell? And I drove home really fast and because I was on my way back from the creche, and I came home and was like, what the hell am I going to call this business? And looked up. I knew I had woken up one night and sent myself an email, and I went back in and so kind of said, because I was going to do a website, and I was like, what was that? And it was like, chapter, start anew. And I suppose just where I was in my life, um, it felt right, but it also felt right in that a lot of agencies try to go for quirky names, and I don't feel like that. I feel like more kind of, I really am drawn to more classic things. Even though I love trends and coolness, I always want to ground them in something classic. So chapter has always felt that kind of like right word, if that makes sense. That there was kind of an elegance to it, I hope. Yeah.
What's the worst thing a client can do to affect you and your team's creative process?
Just probably being rude. Yeah. Yeah. It's very rare, but like that's just demotivating for everybody, so I just, that doesn't breed creativity. But that's very rare. I think that just clients, if you're paying for strategy, you might as well come with an open mind, and genuinely people really do. That's it. But like, yeah, we're very, that doesn't come up very often, luckily.
Okay, okay. Well, what's your favorite book?
Ooh, what is my favorite book? God, that is a hard question for me now, because I have so many. It's not a novel, it's not those kind of just design books. Can I just say that? Or any books.
Yeah,
I'm a
sure.
huge fan of I'm a huge fan of the School of Life. I don't know if that they're kind of philosophy books, really. Big fan of everything. They I think it's Alan de Botton or something is his name, but yeah, big fan of that. Those, I have a lot of their stuff.
you're in a cafe, what do you order?
Oh, I love coffee, but really, it doesn't suit me. So tea, Barry's tea. Huge fan.
Oh,
My dad worked for Barry's tea for 40 years, so huge fan of Barry's tea.
begs my. Oh, well, actually, my next question is irrelevant. Barry's or Lions? You've answered that first.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Describe your perfect Sunday evening.
Oh, that's so easy. At home. Well, home after being out either swimming in the sea or hiking somewhere, or and home with Simon and Hugh and the girls and just all of us here. And we're getting a new puppy and Leah the dog. So that would be my
Oh,
perfect Sunday. Yeah.
great. Um, what's the best piece of career advice you've ever been given?
Um, that's a good one. I think the best thing is bring your energy to work. Honestly, that is, and I don't know if I was ever told that or if I just observed it, but honestly, I think if you got something wrong or you don't have the answer, but you're willing to try, you're willing to ask a question and be vulnerable and show that you maybe don't know the answer, and you just want to do it, you just care, you want whatever the task you have to do to be the best way to do it and bring your energy. That's I think that's it. And if you're waiting for somebody else to motivate you and bring your energy, you want to take from their energy, that's never really going to lead to anything. You have to do it for yourself. And so people will always respond to your energy. They will notice if you're energetic and caring and trying, that will always be noticed.
How would you define success?
Health. I think if 2020 has taught us anything, it's health. I hit my head and had a concussion in August, and it was really bad. It was really miserable. I was very sick for about 2 weeks, and it's scary. And my brother-in-law died last year. He was only 40, and he died in an awful accident, and we had no clue it was going to happen. And that's like nothing else matters, just your health. So look after your health, invest in your health, invest in your mental health, mind yourself. I suppose that's success. I think my brother works in Davy stockbrokers, and he was saying that like people who have real wealth, that time is the same for everybody. They all only have the same time. So valuing your time and your health. That's success, I think.
Great. Dee, thank you so much for giving me all of your time this evening. As always, it's an absolute pleasure, and I feel very lucky to have gotten so much of your time, to have spoken to you, and learned from you. So thank you for coming on to the show.
No problem, and thanks so much for asking me. And well done. I think you're doing a great thing here. I think people are will notice this too. It's really you're asking great questions, and I think people will enjoy it. I hope
so too. All right.
Great. Thanks, Jack.